Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Thomas Galgani Show. My name is Thomas Galgani, and today is episode 17, and we have a Cinema Saturday. Rushmore is the movie that we're going to be talking about today. I want to talk about a lot of new movies that are coming out, and one of the ones I'm going to see soon is actually Horizon, I think is the name of it, Kevin Costner's movies. And they look pretty good, so I'm excited to see those. But I also want a lot of these Cinema Saturdays to be going over classics and, at the very least, cult classic films. And I strongly believe that Rushmore is a classic by all means. Directed by Wes Anderson, came out in '98, and this is actually a really special movie to me. I'm probably going to do a follow-up episode on this one, to be honest, because there's so many different topics to discuss here. And it's a personal movie to me personally because a lot of saying personal a lot here, but it's special to me because I kind of grew up on this movie. And I was thinking, when I was talking about just thinking about it with myself of like, okay, what movies am I going to discuss for Cinema Saturday? I knew that I wanted to go over some of the movies that have been, meaningful to me in my life. And Rushmore was the first one that came to mind. I'm not joking. For some reason, that's always been, something that it's been a movie that's been really special to me. And one of the things that I like about it too is that it's not just a good movie when you look at it objectively, kind of the messages behind it, but also it's just really enjoyable to watch, at least for me. If you like some of that dry humor, and I'm not talking about dry humor like The Office. People say The Office is it's not dry humor. Look at somebody like Dwight Schrute. You cannot say that is dry. Okay, it's pretty overt if you ask me. And I love The Office, by the way. So I'm not knocking The Office, but if you like dry humor, if you like Wes Anderson, Rushmore to me is the OG. He hit that one out of the park so perfectly. And I didn't know that Owen Wilson actually writes a lot of the work with Wes Anderson. So, he deserves a lot of credit for that as well. Jason Schwartzman is the key protagonist. He plays the protagonist in the film. And then Bill Murray, of course, is in there. There's a pretty good cast. And I want to say too that I actually didn't know that Jason Schwartzman, that was kind of his first film, that he had never he was, I guess, a drummer in a band. And I knew that he was kind of newer because I had heard in an interview Wes Anderson talking about how they used a lot of newer people, and he likes to they like to have a lot of newer names. And Bill Murray was the one that they weren't sure about if they could afford him and everything like that. And so he was the big star, but getting somebody like Jason Schwartzman was, I guess, unexpected. And he turned out to be right for the part, though. And I heard Wes Anderson say that he knew within the first couple of minutes that he was going to be perfect for the role because, he comes across as intelligent and also sympathetic at the same time because, as Wes Anderson points out, he does a lot of bad things in the movie, but he still wanted the audience to be rooting for him. And, it's just an interesting movie in so many ways because there are so many funny parts, so many little moments that are just hilarious to me. I'm going to name one right off the bat where Bill Murray's on the phone with Jason Schwartzman, kind of doing some reconnaissance for Schwartzman, and he's starting to realize that he is interested in the woman that Max is the name of the character that Jason Schwartzman plays, and Bill Murray's character, who is Herman. I'm going to try to refer to these characters as the names of their characters if I can. And Herman, no, that just feels weird. I'm just going to go with the actors when it feels right. Bill Murray is talking on the phone, and then he sees his kids playing basketball. He runs up behind one of them as one of them is dribbling and about to take a shot. One of the kids is going for a layup, and Bill Murray just jumps up and just stuffs this kid, just blocks his shot. And it was just so hilarious. It's like a 2-second thing, and it immediately cuts to the next frame. My dad and I, this is kind of one that's big for my family. And, my dad introduced this movie to me when I was a kid. We watched it, and he loved that part too. There's so many other parts, but that was the first one that came to mind. And the lines are priceless. There's just so many jokes. If you haven't seen it, I guess I gave no spoiler disclaimer here, so I'm not really going to be doing a ton of spoilers, I guess. If I do, I'll give another warning. But this is one that if you haven't seen it, definitely please go see it, especially if you want to be friends with me. It's also aesthetically really cool. I had actually another family member once say, she was like, yeah, it's a great fall movie. And when she said that, I'd never thought about that, but it's like, it actually is, because there's so many cool fall scenes. He's on campus a lot with the leaves, it just looks really cool. It's one of those movies that is awesome if you need something to unwind to, or maybe if you're sick and you got to stay home. That's my favorite type of movie for that, because it's just very warm and honest, and all the actors are authentic. That's why I was saying, Jason Schwartzman, I didn't expect him for that to be like his first film. I could be mistaken, but I think that's his first feature film, and he crushed it as far as I can tell. I would not have thought that would have been the case, because he seems very natural in his character. And, he's gone on to be a pretty successful actor himself. Obviously, there's a show that sticks out in my mind called Bored to Death. I think it was eventually canceled after like the 3rd or 4th season, but he's hilarious in that show, in my opinion, and that's with Zach Galifianakis. Anyways, just one of his more recent, where he's done a lot of other stuff that's more recent than that, but that's kind of as an adult as opposed to when he's really young, like in this movie. And it's cool because this movie is showing the protagonist who's growing up. It's kind of a coming of age story. He's confused. He's a bit of a misfit student, but he goes to a prep school that he's very proud of going to. And he's smart, but he's also a terrible student at the same time. And so a lot of times, and Dad, if you're watching this, I got to give you credit, because I agree with you that this is about a kid trying to find his place in the world, and he's learning more about himself, and it's growing up confused and just sort of going through life trying to do the best he can. I'm kind of butchering the way that you phrased it, but it's basically just him trying to find his place in the world and showing the confusion of the teenage years. And I agree that it's definitely about that. But I also think that one of the genius elements to it is just showing the hilarity of when we get so focused in on our own situation, because a lot of this is about Bill Murray's character too. And he does a lot of funny things. He's divorced. He goes through a divorce. He's very, he kind of hates his twin sons, and that's another point in there that's just hilarious, because it keeps showing the kids. And there's even a line with Bill Murray saying, "Never in my wildest dreams or imagination," I can't remember. It's like, never in my wildest dreams did I ever envision that I would have kids like these. It just cuts to them during a wrestling match. And it's just hilarious. The whole back and forth with him and his kids. But back to kind of the meaning behind it is it's showing him, he's focused. He's trying to find his place as well too. He's trying to move forward, and he ends up falling in love with the same woman. I guess that's a spoiler there, so sorry about that if you haven't seen it. But he ends up falling in love with the woman who Max, the protagonist, is in love with, the older woman who's a teacher at the school. And it's just kind of that whole the triangle there is just, it's funny. Last Cinema Saturday, I talked about the fourth wall being broken when a character is looking directly into the camera and sort of addressing the audience. There's one scene where this older woman, I don't know why I'm blanking on her name, because she does a great job as well. Olivia Williams is the actress who plays Miss Cross. She is sitting opposite of Max, and they're just sort of working together, but then they end up speaking with one another, and they're actually looking into the camera during that scene. And I think it kind of adds to the comedic effect of that, because it's just stripping everything away. There's no music. There's no sound design. There is a little bit of sound design with Max kind of sharpening his pencil at different times because he's interrupting her and he's clearly not listening to anything that she's saying. And that's part of what makes it funny, but they're just, she goes, I think it's safe to say I've never met anyone like you either, and it's just so funny because he doesn't understand how awkward it is. And he's trying to be really cool, like a lot of us can be, but it's just the way it's pulled off is just brilliant. The soundtrack is really good. Aesthetically, it's not as bright, as shot as a lot of Wes Anderson films are. Kind of his newer films have those really bright, kind of saturated colors. And there are a lot of tripod shots with really cool kind of thought out composition. But like I said, with the fourth wall being broken here, that's another example of the variety of shots too, because they even use some handheld shots. There's a scene where Bill Murray's walking to the diving board and there's a handheld shot there. It's very you can tell it's been thought out a lot. So typical Wes Anderson, the tripod, different cuts here that are very straightforward. He uses the architecture and the placement of characters, just brilliantly. But that's obviously big kudos to his crew. I guess he used the same crew that he had with his previous film that was Bottle Rocket, I believe. And he did that because he wanted to have the trust there on set. And because it's a film about friendship, according to Wes Anderson, he wanted that to be kind of portrayed. He wanted that to be pulled off on film. And I guess that was one of the things he was really nervous about, because he didn't know how that was going to go. But yeah, so back to the shots. There's another scene where it's a montage of both Max and Herman trying to get back at one another. So they're pulling these pranks, bees, broken bike, stuff like that. They do these different things to each other, just trying to get back at one another until it gets until the finale is like, again, spoiler, Max cuts the brake line of Herman's car and he's arrested for that. It's just so great, and those shots though. So it's not only just the tripod shots mixed in with a couple of handhelds with great composition. There's even a couple of POV shots. So back to the diving board scene with Bill Murray. Once he's up on the diving board, it shows his point of view. So kind of going from one side of the pool to the next, and then he jumps in, and there's sort of this isolated scene of his, and this is a good one, especially, like I said, if it's one of those days where it's kind of raining outside and you just want to stay in for the day, I think it's perfect for that. I also love just the human elements, kind of the back and forth. Doug Lyman, I think, is the name of the other actor that plays one of the principal, basically one of the faculty at the school, where you can tell he's got an affinity for Max. He likes Max, but at the same time he feels the need to expel him, and just him even describing that is very funny to watch as well. He does a great job, and yeah, so I think that's it for this episode, because there's just so much that I can go into. I want to do a follow-up episode on this, preferably probably when I have a guest, because I want to hear another perspective and hopefully have more of a conversation about this as opposed to just me talking to you about this. But now you know, Rushmore is one of my personal favorites, for sure. And, yeah, so now you know, that's a very special thing. One of my favorite movies, for sure. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you guys next week.